Hey there, it's Jordan Savage here. I just wanted to record this video for you because I'd really like to educate everybody on the home buying process so that there's no confusion as we go along and you kind of have a reference point. So you can always come back and refer yourself to this video and kind of clarify where we're at in the process and kind of what's going on a little bit. And of course, you can always reach out to me via text, email, or phone call. So you're already pre-approved, right? We've already gone through the steps of getting with a lender and getting you pre-approved, right? So now we're at the fun part. We get to go shopping. So the first step, we're going to go out, we're going to check out some houses. And once we find a house, we're going to make an offer. An offer consists of three different parts. So we've got the purchase and sale agreement, which is going to be everything from price to closing costs, who pays for what, as far as appraisal and all the different title fees and stuff like that. And we'll talk about that more at the time. The next thing we're going to attach to that offer is the earnest money, which is 1%, because the state of Alaska requires that we give some sort of concession to kind of, it's the handshake of the deal, if you will. And then we're also going to provide them with that lender pre-approval letter. So once we have those three things, we're going to send that thing out. Is it accepted? Yes. Okay, great. Then we move forward. If it's no, then we go back to step one of finding a house. Or what typically happens is they'll counter and we'll come to an agreement, and then we're moving forward from there. So once we get down here, this is called the due diligence period, where we're going to perform a home inspection. It's not mandatory. I highly, highly recommend it. It's not a step you want to skip. We want to make sure that you're not getting a lemon of the house. And I've been fooled so many times where the house looks like it's in great shape. We get a home inspector in there and it turns out it's just a lemon of the house. And so that'll be cash, personal check, or credit card. And we're going to pay that at the time of inspection. And your inspection, we're going to get a report. It's going to be broken down into three different items: health and safety, which is pretty much a no-brainer. We're going to ask for all of those. Recommended repairs, it's kind of a tier below that. Stuff that's a maintenance item and should be done, but it's not threatening health, life, safety, or the structure of the home. And then maintenance items, it's going to be small stuff like light bulbs, doorknobs, dings in walls, and stuff like that. And those are pretty small items. Sometimes we ask for them, sometimes we don't. It just kind of always depends. And we would go through that report together, line by line, to make sure that we're not missing anything and you're getting what you want. So for there, we kind of enter back into negotiations with them. We submit what's called the repair request, and it's an amendment to the contract that's asking them for these repairs. So we're asking the seller to pay the repairs so that when you take possession of this house, the stuff's already done. There's some items that are seasonal, right? So it's really difficult to repair like a driveway in the wintertime. It's just not feasible. So what we can do is we can have them pay for that, give us the invoice saying that it's paid, and then have that done when the season arrives, right? Same thing with roofing and stuff like that. If we find a bad roof and there's snow on the roof, there's really no way to repair that roof in the wintertime. And so we're going to wait until the spring or summer to get that done. So that's how we handle that. We've got the resale certificate down here. That only really comes into play if you're buying in an HOA. And what a resale certificate is it's going to be everything about that HOA, from the financials to the rules to just kind of need to know checklist for living in the HOA. And that would be a seller cost typically. Now, everything on here is negotiable, but there's some things that are just kind of really common in the marketplace. The resale certificate is commonly paid for by the seller. The home inspection is a buyer cost. So any of these things you see kind of highlighted here in yellow could be a buyer cost. Like a home inspection is typically always a buyer cost. An appraisal, it could kind of go either way. It's a little bit of a bargaining chip. So now what an appraisal is there's three different types of value, right? We've got market value. That's what a buyer is willing to pay for a home. We've got assessed value. That's going to be done by the municipality of Anchorage or the Matsu Borough, right? And that's for tax purposes. The appraised value is for your financing. So what we're going to do is we're going to send an appraiser out to the house, and the appraiser is going to give us his idea of what the value is. And so that is for your financing. And so that's why it could go either way. It could be a buyer cost or a seller cost. In this market right now, I'd say more often than not, it's a buyer cost, but historically in Alaska, it's one of the only states where sellers actually do pay the appraisal historically. But with the market right now, it seems like it's kind of shifting over to be more of a buyer cost. So once we get that appraisal back, are we at or are we above value? If we're at or above value, we're good to go. So that's a yes. If we're above value, you pretty much, the appraiser's saying that he believes you have instant equity in the home. That is pretty rare. If it doesn't come in at value, right? So it doesn't come in, then we kind of enter back into negotiations with the seller saying, hey, this appraiser's saying that, you know, it's worth less than what we're in contract for. There's really only one way to move forward typically, and that's to lower the cost of the home to meet the appraisal cost. You can bring in cash to pick up that gap though. So that is another way, but typically most people don't do that because they don't want to start. It's almost like starting upside down on a car. You're starting upside down on a house. And so from there, we would negotiate that and proceed forward. If we don't come to an agreement, we follow this little line back up here. We're back at step one, we're shopping again. From there, we're pretty much on the downhill side of the buying process. You're going to pick up your homeowner's insurance. So I always recommend, you know, if you've got auto insurance with the company, get a quote from them. I've got a couple other local recommendations that do a really good job. And so we talk about that at the time. And then title insurance, we're at this point in the transaction, we've pretty much done a majority of the due diligence we need to do. And we're just waiting for title to perform their title search because we want to make sure you're getting free and clear title. We don't want any liens or anything like that encumbering your title. So we're waiting for the title folks to clear that up. If you're on well and septic, there would be a well and septic test. This is typically a seller cost, ranges from $900 to $1,500 to have an engineer go out and verify. And we're going to make sure that your septic's able to handle the load that is put on it, and that your water is not only coming out at a good flow rate for your home, but also we're getting the water tested to make sure that there's no nitrates, nitrites, arsenic, or coliform in that. So from there, if we pass, great. If not, we kind of enter back into this little negotiation phase. It's really not usually much of a negotiation because you got to have a septic, you got to have clean water. And so it's very typical that the seller will pick up those costs and we'll move forward. From there, you're going to get issued your closing disclosures. A lot of people refer to it as the CD. This is a document that is basically everything about your loan, and it's going to come from the lender. So should you have any questions, I'll definitely get with the lender. We could get on a three-way call and talk that out. But you have 3 business days prior to signing to review the CD and raise any issues. It's usually at that point, we've pretty much got everything hashed out. It's not a big deal, but should you have any questions, always reach out. From there, we'll go through our final inspection / final walkthrough stage. So depending on what we find on this inspection report, right? If we need a roof replacement, if we're talking about HVAC issues, heating issues, hot water issues, we're probably going to want to opt for this final inspection just to make sure everything is kosher, all the repairs were done and done properly. If it's smaller items, so say we get the home inspection and they're like, hey, there's like 2 smoke detectors that need to be replaced, we need a couple light bulbs replaced, stuff like that, you could probably save that $200 because I'm sure we can verify that we've got new smoke detectors and light bulb replacement. From there, we'll sign off on the final walkthrough sheet and we'll basically move towards closing. So at closing, for any down payment, it's going to be a certified check, cashier's check typically. You can also wire those funds. And it's funny because a lot of people think that they actually have to have that to sign. It's something you can actually sign and then go and get after. So don't stress out about the cashier's check. We'll get that part worked out. From there, you're going to go to the title company, sign. And in Alaska, everything takes a little longer, so we record the next business day. And that's when you'll get your keys. If I did a good job for you, I'd love your online review or testimonial. And if you've got your friends and family looking to sell real estate, I would love to take care of them as well. So here's some things we kind of came up with that we've seen in the past. It's the 10 commandments of buying a home. Thou shalt not change jobs, become self-employed, or quit your job. Shall not buy a car, truck, or van, or you may be living in it down by the river, as Chris Farley would say. Thou shalt not use credit cards excessively or at all, or let your accounts fall behind. Don't spend money you have set aside for closing. Don't omit debts or liabilities from your loan application. It always pops up either on your credit or on the title report. Don't buy furniture on credit, no matter how good the sale is. Don't pull your credit for any kind of new credit like cars or anything like that. The inquiries actually make a difference. No large deposits without first checking with your loan officer. Seen that in the past become an issue. And don't change your bank accounts, and don't co-sign on a loan for anyone. I had that happen to me last year where a guy didn't sign on a car for his mom, and disqualified him from getting a loan.